What if harmony can only truly be experienced when we come to accept chaos as intrinsic to it? I ask because I spent a lifetime searching for the answer to what harmony feels like. And what I've discovered may surprise you, because harmony isn't a destination you arrive at. It's not something you achieve and keep forever. It's more like a brief alignment, precious because it's fleeting and impossible to maintain. My search for harmony began before I knew I was looking. I was just 18 months old when my father tragically took his own life after crippling battles with depression. I never got to know him. Most of what I learned came through other stories. He was a skilled draftsman working on Dublin's architectural heritage. He loved woodworking, playing the guitar, the mandolin, and the banjo. I came to know him through fragments, through other people's memories. He was like a ghost that never visited me. Family told me he was good at art, and naturally, I wanted to be just like him. I didn't really know what that was going to look like. It just began as holding a pencil and doodling, but over time it grew into something bigger. My own interest in becoming an observer and recording these moments became how I translated what I was experiencing onto a page. Home life had been fractured, and over the coming years had become particularly dysfunctional. My mum had remarried to a man who drank excessively and used his temper and fists to control the home. The impact of not having a stable father figure there affected me deeply, and my art became the vehicle that I expressed through. I didn't directly connect my trauma to what I was creating at the time, but that's what it was. I was drawn to darker compositions, and the art was mirroring the pain and loss inside me. I spent summers staying with my grandparents in the southwest of France, sent there to get away from home, to give me a month or so of stability. My nan would take me around the markets and shops, spoiling me rotten with sweets and cakes, determined to fatten me up. My granddad, a keen artist himself, worked mostly in pencils and pastels and was fascinated by artistry and craftsmanship. From a very young age, I travelled around with him learning artistic skills, sketching local landmarks. He taught me a great deal. He was a collector of antiques and artisanal objects, and would take me to places where I could see these craftsmen and their work. This other world that I spent time in became a really big influence in my adult life. I developed a real appreciation for the work being produced, as well as the artist producing it. It made it accessible, making things with your hands. It's just what people do. I didn't see barriers. I just went away and did it. During those early years, I found my voice. There was so much bullying and control being acted out at home that I kind of made it my mission to shout it out every time I saw it, to rebel against all authority and rules, and I rebelled hard. I found comfort in my art. It was all mine, and no one can take it from me. For as long as I can remember, art was my only outlet. I found my way to experimenting with alcohol at just age 11, drugs at 13, and was a regular user by 14. Escapism had an unexpected benefit. I learned I could become comfortably numb, to temporarily silence the noise. By the time I turned 16, using drink and drugs had become a daily ritual. In the early years, it had become extreme, and I put myself in dangerous situations on a couple of occasions, which nearly cost me my life. As I slipped into using habitually, I started to struggle psychologically. I practiced so hard at escaping that somewhere along the way, I lost a sense of who I'd been. But being creative and making art gave me a sense of who I was. My identity was lost at times, and it was the art that drew me back and gave me a centre to work from. It was the one thing I never lost when I felt I'd lost everything else. Art was my anchor. It was the rock that I clung to. It was amongst the chaos of losing that sense of self, amidst the struggle to find purpose, that I met a girl and fell in love. It took months for me to find my way out of the tangled mess that I'd knocked myself into. But it was within the comfort of the relationship that I found a little peace and started to build a life that had meaning. My life had turned a corner, and in the blink of an eye, I was a stepdad, and not long after, my partner was pregnant. This was the space I could try and right the wrongs. Being a dad, being a husband, gave me the opportunity to be someone, to raise a family, and hopefully fill lives with love. My interest in woodwork, coupled with the drive to support my family, developed into an idea to start a business. Something stable, something I could call my own. It grew rapidly over the next few years, way faster than I was expecting. New premises, expensive machinery, and expanding workforce. The wheels were really turning. And then from nowhere, boom, the financial crash hit. Just like that, 50% of my business collapsed within 3 months. I realised pretty quickly I was not the businessman that I thought I was. My confidence was really shaken. I didn't know how to manage it all. Debts mounted rapidly, and over the next 9 months it all fell apart. And with it went my self-esteem and who I felt I was supposed to be. I had a wife and 3 young kids. I'd worked really hard to become someone. All of my value was in being that guy. The crash of my business, my confidence, and my identity sent me into 2 years of which I think of as being at sea. And again, the one thing I had was being creative. After years of creating versions of things as a hobby artist, I hadn't really seen it as a search for identity. It was easy to copy or reference something and sketch it, to create versions of those things, but it felt like I was trying to be what others expected me to be. Eventually, from being a young boy getting praise heaped on me for my art, that style of creating had begun to feel hollow. I stopped painting with an end point in mind. I stopped creating versions of things, and I started painting abstractly. It became my new obsession. Through desperation and the need to put food on the table, I posted a few paintings onto some websites, and they started selling faster than I could produce them. I still didn't really equate it to anything deeper. Then one day, still at sea, with this balled up, suppressed inner turmoil, all of my unprocessed pain came to the surface. I created a painting that felt like a spiritual awakening. For the very first time, I saw myself in a piece. I titled it Reach, and all of a sudden, I understood the value of art in a way I hadn't before. This is art, I thought, the sharing of experience. It was only when I started painting abstractly that I noticed the work started leading people to understanding themselves, and the work began to reflect their journeys. There was this whole other connection, one I'd never really thought about. All of a sudden, we are sharing the experience of life. It went from being deeply personal to something else entirely. That sharing of experience gave me an identity. I'll be in a gallery today at one of my exhibitions talking to 100 or so people, and we all have our own take on the work. It all comes from the very personal experiences of the lives that we've lived. But in amongst everyone else's story, I found mine. And instead of being isolated, Simon Kenny, I became part of everyone else and found myself amongst everyone else. The journey to that awakening was hugely uncomfortable. The process of unlearning myself as an artist, where I'd gone from believing having the ability to draw something well that actually looked like something, was the only thing I was ever really good at. And who was I going to be without it? In the process of abstraction, I had to let go of all of that, to undo and unravel my identity as an artist, to let go of artistic techniques I'd learned over a lifetime, and just connect to raw emotions. The fear and doubt that I was feeling was almost overwhelming. I made a lot of mess in those early days experimenting, but within the chaos, something started to click, and I wanted more of it. It built from there, and then from within the artwork, it started to shape itself. Making a mark on the canvas and responding to something became the thing, but it came with a roller coaster of emotions. I had to let go of the fear of judgment, the fear of failure. Today, when I paint abstractly, I still have to practice that. So here's what I've learned about harmony. It doesn't stay. The moments where it feels aligned and I'm in tune are brief. I spend perhaps 90% of my time searching for those moments and 10% achieving it. There is a constant doing and undoing and doing and undoing, and the process in abstract painting is completely reflective of life. When I stand in my exhibitions surrounded by my creations, I think no one has any idea what I go through to get there. The process can be manic, intense and challenging, but I love it. I tell future artists not to shy away from what feels uncomfortable, that this is where authenticity lives. The unknown is always where it feels most alive. This isn't painting by numbers. It's completely feelings-based, immeasurable and instinctive. The process pours out until gradually a painting takes on a life of its own. Just as in each painting I see the highs and lows, the dark and the light, the imperfection and the parts I love. The same process of creation and destruction is evident everywhere. In our relationships, in nature and in the cosmos. Standing on a beach during a large storm with waves crashing and wind howling and rain beating down can feel both completely chaotic and yet thoroughly cleansing. These moments make you feel totally alive precisely because they remind us that chaos and calm are inherently linked. I'm fascinated by extreme forces of nature. Storms, crashing waves, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes. The destructive power can be both terrifying and yet captivating. There's something here that nature's teaching us on scales unimaginable compared to human experience. We see creation and destruction going hand in hand. The very elements in our bodies, the oxygen that we breathe, the carbon in our cells, the calcium in our bones, it was all forged in the nuclear furnaces of stars and scattered across the universe when those stars exploded as supernova. We literally contain our own inner universe. We're a complex arrangement of atoms, cycles of experience where elements created at the origins of time eventually became matter from which life itself emerged. The creation of cycle and destruction, the cycle of it, is what we are today. Harmony is not a static state, but a temporary moment between movement and arrival, between states, between calm and chaos. Often, the most alive place in a painting is the fault line, where things almost fall apart and yet somehow hold. Today, I seek out the moments where I'm not sure, the space beyond my comfort zone. I started to think I was done reaching towards a father I never knew, but I think I'll always be searching. Over time, I've realised I'm also reaching towards a part of myself, the part that believes belonging doesn't require perfect answers. Understanding this helps me make sense of something profound about time and existence. Our individual lives span perhaps 80 years or so if we're fortunate, but from what we know so far, the universe has been unfolding for 13.8 billion years. When I consider these timescales, existence seems like nothing more than a millisecond when compared to the universe's grand transformational cycles. And yet here we are, conscious beings made of star stuff, capable of wonder, creation, and love. This perspective doesn't diminish our search for meaning, it elevates it. Harmony, I've learned, is not the erasure of difficulty. It's an arrangement that can hold difficulty without collapsing. It's a chord that includes dissonance and still resolves enough for a body to exhale. In my studio now, blank canvases still intimidate me. Each one feels like setting out on a journey with no known destination. But I've learned to trust the process, to live in the question long enough to be shaped by it. The manic states, the moments of doubt, the push-pull, these aren't disruptions of harmony. They are harmony becoming, in all its temporary and precious complexity. We don't find peace by tidying life into submission. We find it by composing with what's here, by staying present to the search itself. I look at my life from my birth and the absolute chaos along the way, and even with all of that, not a day goes by that I don't see the world is incredibly beautiful. I've had so many amazing experiences despite all that's happened. I don't have an answer to what harmony is because I honestly think harmony is about living in the question. And it is within that chaos that we find ourselves. I find peace in that. I don't have to be in control. I can just allow it to keep coming and going. And when my life comes to an end, this will go on. The pattern of creation and destruction will continue. So make and embrace the mess. Creativity is unlocked when mistakes are allowed. And somewhere amidst the noise, you'll land. And when you do, you'll recognize the feeling. Perhaps the truest sense of harmony we feel comes when we stop trying to arrive and instead allow ourselves to belong to the search. Thank you.